Yeah. So it's just like, again, the birth and the first time they have sex. Those are things I think they needed to be as powerful as possible, and I think they are, And now it'll be up to them to decide if they've gone for. I don't think so, honestly, because obviously, there's a certain kind of nudity you can't have, although there's more than a suggestion of it, and there's a certain amount of blood, flying across the room you can't have either. I think it is more in the area of suggestion, but I think it's pretty potent.
Now, the actors have established these roles,
Yeah.
and they own them.
Yes.
So you have pretty strong, Kristen Stewart and Rob
Yeah.
Pattinson. How do you approach them with a change in direction?
That's a good question. For Kristen, she was one of the things I was so excited about in doing the movie, because I'm really just a fan of hers. This movie, she's played Bella. She's played this high school girl up to this point. And again, we made these two movies at the same time. Across this time, she becomes a wife. She experiences the difficulties of the first year of marriage. She becomes a mother, and then she becomes a vampire. So it was about taking this thing that had been established and getting it to there. There's a huge journey. But for each of the three, they grow up, And I think that's where I felt I could bring something to. Catherine Hardwicke has such a gift for getting inside the brain of a teenage girl. It's
And
like
Stephanie Meyer did.
Stephanie does too, absolutely. But you look at the original Twilight. I look at that and think I couldn't do that. It's like she brought that to that. But I thought I could do this, because this is not. These are grown-up concerns now. These are, if you took again all the werewolves and vampires out of this is like, okay, you get to marry your fantasy figure. Now you're living with them, waking up with them every day, and what about that first kind of like, oh my God, there are things about him I really didn't know, and things I'm a little unsure about that. All those adult things that happen after the fantasy and you're actually living in the real world. That's what this movie's about, and the actors were really keen to explore that.
Now, you reached out to the fans and asked for their feedback. Is there anything that they told you that you heeded?
Right. I'll tell you one thing. It was amazing. We've never talked about this. I've never talked about it before, but we shot our first day in Rio, in this great neighborhood called Lapa. We were closing the street down, and it was meant to be Bella and Edward sort of walking through the streets, sort of very romantic, very sexy, as they're heading toward the boat that's going to take them to Isle Esme. And we'd had discussions, and we decided that at that point, she was going to have her engagement ring, but they weren't going to exchange. There was at one moment where we think they weren't going to exchange rings. I think Stephanie had mentioned something about it being an Edwardian wedding, and their rings were out of fashion at that point, So we're on the set, and of course there are paparazzi there. No matter how hard the production had tried, the second story of these buildings were filled with paparazzi. It's 2 in the morning in Brazil. People take pictures. I'm getting phone calls from the studio, right? First and only time this happened where you're getting notes as you're shooting. Literally, I've just set up a shot, and it's like, so the fans are really, really upset about the rings. I think we made a wrong decision. It's like they want those wedding rings. And this was my first day, and it was like, oh my God, this is what making this movie is going to be like.
What, did you capitulate?
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was. So.
And so, did you embrace the horror? I mean, you went as a filmmaker.
Yes.
I mean, you haven't
God.
had a chance to really go down. I mean, you're a Hitchcock fan and all that.
Absolutely.
So, who else did you sort of channel in terms of how you?
It's like Hitchcock and Cirque. Those.
So you are going a little over the top.
Well, I hope it's not that, because
I mean that
but
I
I mean
a charged sense.
Yes, it is. It is. I think that was the whole thing, and even having Guillermo Navarro shoot it, who does all Del Toro's movies, there's a sense of really being immersed in this movie, immersed in the experience of Bella as she goes through this unbelievably intense, third act, And also, I have to say, Stephanie had done something interesting. These books are all told from Bella's point of view, except for this book, which breaks the point of view in the middle and becomes Jacob's point of view. And that's something we try to do too. Jacob, as he becomes what does it feel like to be him as he's a wolf, to be there, to be communicating with your pack and all that. That's like, again, this kind of immersive experience, I hope, of trying to get inside what that experience is.
Which brings up the whole issue of 3D.
Yes, yeah.
So how did you handle that?
Well, it was something
We all have strong feelings about this, and I'm sure you do too.
yeah. Well, my feelings have become clearer since a year ago when we had the original discussion of it. And my feeling then was absolutely not for movie 4, for the first of these movies. But she does wake up in movie 5 as a vampire. And the whole idea there is finally, the curtains pull back and we get to, instead of her seeing little glimpses of this life, she is us, and now we're going to feel what it's like.
That's a good idea, actually.
And so there was a reason to do it. We ultimately decided not to do it because we were making these 2 movies at once, jumping back and forth. It just got too unwieldy.
So they were putting pressure on you?
No, I think it was honestly a discussion we all had together. Obviously a year ago, everyone was thinking seriously about it.
Now you maybe feel like you did the right thing.
I do. I feel like it was. Because, we found a different way to...
Because emotions and people, that stuff isn't for 3D.
I don't think it is. Don't tell Jeffrey Katzenberg, but it does. And also
I just saw Captain America. It's so obvious to me. You're in period, it's only going to pull you out of it.
Right.
If you're in some hyper-futuristic universe and all digital,
I know, Avatar,
then maybe.
Yeah. And the thing for me, I did go to the seminars. I want to know what it was like. Sony has this thing, and the stuff. And the thing, it's meant to give you this hyper-real experience. But the thing is, once you get to know it a little bit, all it is, it's this cardboard plane and this cardboard plane. I still, when it's used like Avatar and there's those things flying through the air, and there are brilliant ways to use it, but I still think in the more ordinary ways in which it's been used, it's as artificial as a studio movie from the 40s, I think,
Enough, and I couldn't agree with you more. So where are you in the process of shooting the final film and finishing the final film?
We shot the 2 movies together. I've just finished the cut of the first movie, so we're now going to finish off the visual effects. We're going to score at Abbey Road in September, and it's a crunch kind of to get it ready for release in November. And then sometime around October, I'll the second movie, which is kind of assembled, it's in a drawer. I'll open the drawer and get into that.
And you'll go, oh no.
Exactly. I know. It's very weird. It's very weird to be. I'll be cutting stuff that by then I would have shot a year earlier, which is a new feeling,
And what about the new elements that you've brought to this? That are there some things that are going to be new, sort of fresh and new to the fans that they might not expect? I mean, changes you've made.
Yeah, I think so. I think there are some big, in general, there are big changes. A lot in the second movie, but even in the first movie, I think the fun of this is. The opportunity of it is that there is this huge audience there watching and waiting, so it's fun to play with them, It's fun to play with, was that, how you do the sex scene, and, or how you do the wedding, like, trick them a little with expectations and then a little, you'll see what I'm talking about, but I mean, I think that's, it's a rare opportunity to know that your audience is that knowledgeable that you can pull the rug out from under them a little bit too, in a fun way,
Yeah, no, but without going too far.
Well,
and
I hope, yeah, right, exactly.
With rings.
Right.
And then the other thing is that these, as we said before, these actors have matured and grown
Yes.
up, and have they become, better actors? And are they more? Is their maturity bringing something to the table?
I
All
think
the stuff that they've
inevitably,
gone through
it has to,
that
it
you can
has to.
tap into.
I think it really has, and I think there's each one of them has. I don't, again, I didn't know them before, but they've each got a tremendous ease with themselves and the characters.
I would think so.
Taylor is just a natural. And Rob too. I think you'll see with Rob. That's a very brooding character. I think and an idealized version of this guy that every woman wants, or a lot of women.
I'm Team Edward.
Right.
All the way.
But you'll see there's more, because I'm sure you've talked to him. Rob's a very funny guy. He's very witty, and he's easy to laugh, and more of that has made its way into the movie. He's found ways to bring himself in more, and I think that's always when something really starts to cook, you know? When you, I mean, and certainly Kristen always. Kristen, the Bella of the movie, of all of the movies, I think, is equal parts what Stephanie Meyer created and who Kristen Stewart is, you know?
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you, Ann. Okay.